Hey everyone, this is a video demonstration of how you can cut up your designs for a web page or a screen-based design. We're going to be starting with a Photoshop file. You can do it in Illustrator. Photoshop and Illustrator, when it comes to the process we're going to be using today, is slicing. Photoshop and Illustrator are pretty much almost identical apart from one little bit. When we get to that little bit, I'll explain it, so for those people who are using Illustrator, you'll know exactly what to do. Okay, now before I do anything, I'm just going to open up my file that I've got ready. I've just got it, and I'm using this design called Serene Spaces, which is an example that I used in class just for one of my demonstrations. I have one here called Serene Spaces Slicing Example, and this is a design that I put together just so that we can have a look at an actual design and say, well, okay, how would we convert this actual layout into from Photoshop into an actual web page or a screen-based design? Now, one of the first things that you really have to do is you have to work out exactly what parts of your design actually need to be exported from Photoshop and what parts you can just pretty much include as text. Say, for example, this logo. Does the font, will you find the font on everyone's computer? If you do, or if you do find it on everyone's computer, then most likely you could just export that as font and recreate it in, if you're doing it in a web page with CSS, or if you're doing it on a screen-based production like PowerPoint, you could then just go and drop in a couple of blocks of text and place them where you want to create this look. But if we were doing this and you didn't think the font was going to be on everyone's computer, then it's always good to export that as a graphic. That way you don't have to worry about incompatibility issues because it imports the graphic. It displays the same way on everyone's screen. Okay, so what I'm going to do is I'm going to just step through and show you the different sections of this website website mock-up that I've created. Now, I haven't done every single page. I've just done a couple of different pages just so you can see what it looks like. So this is pretty much like a splash page. They come to the front page of the website and they see this logo. They see a couple of different sections of the website they can go and have a look at, such as services, a portfolio page, in the press, and a contact section. And also there's an enter button so they can just take them into the start page. Okay, over you can see I've got my groups all set up here. I've got a header section. If I turn that on, you'll see the header section up here. I've got my splash all sitting in here, so I'll turn that off so you can see what is part of the splash. I've got a content setup group here, which contains a home section, services, portfolio, in the press, and contact. So I don't think I've done my home section, but I've done my services section, for example, and as you can see, I can't really see it too clearly, so I'm just going to go and turn on a few things so you can see it a little bit better. And I believe I wanted to have my header section as well. Okay, so here you go. This is what the services page would look like. If I hide that services, then I can go down and have a look at my portfolio page. You could see that's what a portfolio page would look like, with some text, some blocks of solid color, logo, everything there. This is just a pretend slider that the user could slide across to have a look at more of these actual type of portfolio blocks. Then if I hide that, I haven't done in the press, but I've done a contact page, and you could see a contact page there with what looks like a form that the user can fill out, and a send button, and also a little Google map sitting over here with some lorem ipsum just to pretend that it's text, and some more text down here. Now, a very important thing where it comes to text, you do not want to just render this out as a graphic. If it's text, please actually put it in to your PowerPoint or to your web page as text. I've actually had clients or worked with people who have designed work for clients, and they've just literally gone and saved most of the page as a graphic, and for search engines it can't actually read the text because it's a graphic. So you always want to have it as a text so that it can be selected so search engines can actually index it. That's very, very important. Okay, let's go back to the home page, and this is where I'm going to start talking about how exactly to cut this up. Okay, so let's go back. So I'm going to go and hide my header, just collapse my content section, collapse, I think my footer, I was leaving that on, that little copyright symbol down there, and my background here, and then I'm turning on my splash. So let's get started. So to actually cut this up, we actually first need to work out what needs to be cut up. Now for this, you'll notice that we've got this logo here, and this was using a font that that I don't believe is actually available. I think it was called Chalk Duster. I wanted to create something sort of, a little bit ambient, a little bit free-flowing, so I just grabbed a font that looked like it had actually been drawn on a board, almost like something you'd imagine to be used as part of this business. So this font isn't on every computer, so what I would probably suggest doing is saving this as a graphic. Now the interesting thing is that this navigation here, it's also in the same font, this is in the same font, so I really think that all of these should be graphics. Now when we're doing this, I'm just going to zoom in a little bit, so I'm just going to zoom in so you can see. Yep, let's go move this over a little bit. Yep. You'll notice here that you can see that we've got slight shadows underneath here. We'll drop shadows just so that it makes the text sort of stand out. So when we're actually going to crop this, we're actually going to crop these sections around here to say, for example, to grab the image, but we want to make sure that we leave enough room so that we can easily get these actually drop shadows as well. So I'm just going to zoom back out again. Oops, wrong way. And what I'm actually going to do is I'm going to use my guides. Guides are really fantastic when it comes to cutting things up, because if I go up to the rulers here where you see my mouse, and if I left click and drag down onto the canvas here, you'll see that it will snap, but if not, you can just move it to a close area. Now I would really recommend at this point zoom in a little bit just to see how close it's got, because you can always just move this up a little bit if it's a little bit too close. But I think that's pretty good. So I'm just going to zoom out again. Now I'm also going to do the bottom one. So I'm just going to grab that and probably bring that down to about there. I think that's pretty good. You want to leave, as I said, a bit of room for that drop shadow. Now let's go to the left and the right hand side. So I'm just going to, I think Photoshop's really helping me out here. It's snapping to enough space for that. Okay. Now I'm just going to concentrate on this graphic as it is, because I'd like to do one example and then we'll move on and do some more. So the main thing with this graphic is that we want to make this graphic really, really flexible. What I mean by that is that at the moment we can see that it's got a graphic underneath it. We want to make the logo flexible, but it's got a graphic underneath it. Now, what happens if you decided to change that graphic? Now, if we go and cut this up and crop this with this background graphic, it means that if you wanted to change the background graphic, you'd have to come and re-render this logo. We don't want to do that. The idea is we'd like to have it with a transparent background, so it means whatever you put behind it, it'll just beautifully sit on top. So now that we've actually got these guides that can help us, what I'm going to do is I'm actually going to go and hide the background. Okay, so now you can see I've actually hidden the background, and you've got that checkerboard effect, which in Photoshop or Illustrator just means it's a transparent background. And this is where we're going to start looking at slicing. Now, slicing is a very cool way of cutting up major parts of your, like many parts of your document. We're only going to be cutting up one part for the moment, but soon we're going to come down and do the services portfolio in the press and contact. So over in the toolbar, you can see I've got my toolbar here. Down in the toolbar, you'll see this little tool here. Now, this is the crop tool, as you can see. You can either click it or you can just choose it with pressing C. Now, it's got this little arrow you can see in the bottom right-hand corner. If I click and hold down, you'll see you have a fly-out menu. Now, the fly-out menu has this tool, this one here, called the slice tool. Now, I'll just zoom in, I'll just zoom in so you can see that. There you are, so that's the slice tool there, that's the one we want. Now by selecting that, the idea is, and by having these guides, all you have to do is get close to it, you left click and you drag the box down like this. Just like that. And it should actually snap to the guides, which is fantastic, which means that you can get it really precise with the guides, and then when you use the slice tool, it'll just pick up exactly where you want it to be, as it has done there. Okay, now what we're going to do is we are then going to go to the slice select tool, because now we have to give it a little bit of information. So we go to the slice select tool, so that's the third one, the one underneath the slice select, the slice tool, and then you double click the guide, the slice. Now, what you get is this section here, which asks you a little bit of information about, well, what is this slice? What is it called? Now, we want to give this slice a name that means something. So I'm going to call this splash underscore logo. Okay, now the reason we're giving this a special name is because when we actually export this, it'll pick it up and use this name as the graphic name. You'll understand a little bit more later on when we go to export it. So we click OK. Now, actually, we're going to export it now, so we'll be able to have a look at what happens. So, up in the menu system, we're going to export this now. So we go File, and we go Save for Web and Devices. We can see this here, Save for Web and Devices. Right up there, yep. So we left click, and it brings us into this menu. Now drag it out a little bit so you can see, the look of it. Yep. Now you'll notice at the moment the left side still has that checkerboard, because usually the left side in the export for web is usually always the original graphic. It's always good to have one of the sections in here as the original graphic, so it means that you can compare this graphic to this graphic, so you can compare the right to the left. If you don't have the original, then you could degrade the image a lot when you're exporting it and not even realize. So at least having them side by side, you can see them really nicely. So let's go over to the right hand side here. Now this is where you choose the graphic format that you want, and also all the settings that are associated with that graphic format. Now over at the top here, you can see that these are the 5 major forms of graphics that you can use on the web. You have GIF, you have JPEG, you have PNG 8-bit, PNG 24-bit, and WBMP wireless bitmaps, which not many people use at the moment. We're yet to see if they take off. So what we want to do though is we want to make this transparent so it can just sit on top of any graphic. So we choose PNG 24. Now look what's happened. You can see that this has now gone transparent. So what we now need to do is we just choose to save this graphic. Okay. Now I've got on the desktop, I have my Serene Spaces folder, and you'll notice up the top here that it's choosing to give it a name. Don't worry about it. That it's not going to save it with that name. It's going to save it with that one that, you know how we double clicked and gave it the slicer name? It'll save it with that name instead. And because we've chosen to make it a PNG 24, that's what it'll export it as. So all you have to do now is click, down here as well, sorry I forgot to just mention this. You want to only format the images. You only want the images. Just leave it at default settings, that's fine. And we want to choose only the selected slices. If you choose all slices, it's going to go and cut up this as being a slice and underneath this as being a slice. So we've only chosen this section of the page that we want to cut it up and export. So we just say only use the selected slices and then we click save. Done. So if I minimize that now and come and have a look, if I go into my images folder, these are a couple of the other images that I'm using for the design, but in here you now see splash logo. Now it's got a grey background here, but that's okay because it's because it can't actually show you the transparency in this preview, but it's actually got a transparency to it so that when you put that into whatever your publication, whether it be PowerPoint or whether it be HTML for web pages, that will just sit beautifully over whatever's underneath. Okay, now that's done one graphic. So what we're going to go do now is we're just going to come back here and I'm just going to open up Photoshop again. Now what I'd like to do is I'm thinking maybe we should cut up these graphics as well. Their services, portfolio, in the press, contact and enter. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to grab my guides and I'm going to drag some more guides down into here. Nope, that looks like it needs to be a little bit further down. So I just zoomed in and I'll use my move tool just to move that a little bit further down. Great. Yep, that's pretty good. So over here, I'm just going to drag some more guides out because I'm just going to use, and please feel free to use your guides a lot. They help you a lot when you're doing slicing. You can always take them away. They don't have to stay in your composition. You can take them away as soon as you're finished doing the slicing. So I just cut that up. And I'm also going to do one while I'm here. I'm going to cut up this enter button as well. So I'll just do the left and the right. Now I know it looks like I'm making a mess here with guides. That's okay though. As I said, we can take them away once they're done. Okay. So what we're going to do now is we're going to go and we want to use our slice tool. So when I chose that again, so remember it's the slice tool, not the slice select, because we want to create slices. Okay, we then go and drag boxes around all of those buttons. Yep, that one, yep, there we go. And also that enter button. So as you can see, now we're actually doing 5 all at once. So once we've gone and done that, we now need to give each one of these a name. So let's go back into our slice select tool and double click, and I'm going to call this navigation underscore services. This one I'll call navigation underscore, and that was portfolio. This one is in the press, so that'll be navigation in the press. Let's spell it correctly. And this is navigation contact. Great. And this one here is just our enter button. So we're only using this on the splash page, so I'm just going to call it splash, enter. Done. Now again, it would really be good when we export these to make it so that each one of these can be transparent, because they're going to be sitting on some sort of background. It can change, so if you ever think the background is going to change or could possibly change, always make it a transparent, make it so it supports transparency. So let's go back into here. Now we've named all these 5 graphics. We go File, Save for Web and Devices, so we come back in here and we then go and choose each of our graphics. So, oops, I'll do it over on this side. Now, so we go and choose all 5 of them. So I'm going to hold down the Command key, or the Control key, or Shift key, sorry. So Shift key, that should work on both Mac and Windows. So as you can see, I've selected all 5 of them because we're going to use all the same setting. We go and choose PNG24. We say we want to support our transparency and we want it interlaced so it's nice and clean. And then, once you've done that, you go and click Save and make sure we've got all those 5 selected. You can see with that slightly brown outline, that helps us to know which is selected. Make sure you're not needing to select this top one. And again, we just leave that name. We just leave that space because it'll automatically go and stick them in. It creates an images folder, but we've already got one, so it's just going to stick everything in there. You make sure you've only got the selected slices, and it will remember this from your last setting. So if you use selected slices last time, it'll automatically have it there. And you just click Save. Okay, let's go check to see if they're there. So I'm going to go back to my little folder, which is this, nope, oops, that's my other folder. Let's just go back. Let's go back to here. It's gone. Hold on. Let's just open it up again. There we go. So we're going to Images, and as you can see, there's the graphics. All nicely sitting there. So that's the basis of that's the basics of slicing. So hopefully that has helped you with cutting up your page. I'm going to do one more demonstration video, so feel free to check that one out as well. Which is actually going to be an internal page where I'm going to be showing you how to turn off and on layers, how to grab the background, how to grab the headings, those kinds of things, and what things you should be exporting and what kinds of things you shouldn't be exporting. So hope to see you in the next video.